All right, welcome back to the Sportscasters Club online YouTube program. And before I go any further, make sure you're subscribed so you get all of our episodes. This one is going to be a fun episode because we're going to talk about how you can take steps to make sure you're a professional. How can you become a professional and make sure you're a professional? And we're talking specifically about the sports broadcasting industry, but this will really apply to any career path that you are in or that you're pursuing. So, I'm Rick Schultz, glad to have you here. This is the online program where we talk about how to become a better sports fan, how to become a better sports broadcaster. So hopefully you have some fun here in these episodes. Let's talk about how to be a professional, and in this case, how to be a professional sports broadcaster. And I'm not talking about being a professional in the fact that you're getting paid. Yes, technically that means you're a professional. So if you're doing it as a hobby, not getting paid, you're not a professional. But the moment someone cuts you a check, the moment someone sends you some dough, you're a professional. You're getting paid for your ability to broadcast. And so you want to be a professional. But what I'm talking about here is how to carry yourself as a professional. And we're going to talk about 3 ways. And again, if you're looking to make a career transition or build a career in any field, these 3 things are going to help you. Okay, first way to be a professional is having appropriate self-awareness. Now, I'm going to frame all this because when I talk about a professional broadcaster, I always go back to 1996, I guess it was, broadcasting in the minor leagues, baseball. And we would travel around city to city. And my partner Bill Rogan and I would always make a lot of friends wherever we went to the opposing towns, opposing ball clubs. And there was this one town that had 2 broadcasters, much the same that we did. And they had the same first name, Bob. I'm not going to use the real name because they can watch this and they'll probably figure out we're talking about them. And you'll see why I don't want that. But they had 2 Bobs broadcasting. And we, probably by the second time we saw them, we nicknamed them Professional Bob and Unprofessional Bob. Because they had a distinct difference in the way they carried themselves. A distinct difference in how they went about their business. And again, I don't care if you're in banking, if you're in finance, whatever, if you're a teacher, I don't care what career path. These 3 tips are going to be helpful to you because you're not going to want to be like unprofessional Bob. You're going to want to be like professional Bob. So when we would show up to the ballpark, and I mentioned tip number 1, having self-awareness, professional Bob would be in the dugout. He would have his notes. He would be talking to players and coaches or around the batting cage before the game. He would be chit-chatting, finding out some tidbits, getting some information for his broadcast. Meanwhile, unprofessional Bob, who we loved, he was a great guy. We loved being around him. But he was loud. He was boisterous. I remember one day we were in the dugout talking with a few of the players and the manager before the game. And unprofessional Bob was hanging from the rafters in the dugout, swinging around, like doing a gymnastics act. And Bill and I looked at each other like, what's this guy's deal? We liked him. He was a great guy, fun guy to maybe go out and have a pop with after the game. I don't know if we ever did that, but we would have. Or I would have. Bill didn't drink. And we called him Professional Bob and Unprofessional Bob because they had a difference. And so you wanted to be like Professional Bob, knowing your place, acting the way you should act in a setting, carrying yourself with some dignity, some decorum, especially in the dugout, on the field, at the batting cage. You didn't want to be swinging around and loud and carrying on and kind of the center of attention of unprofessional Bob. So that's the first way. The second way you can be a professional as a broadcaster or in any career is look the part. Now I know these days we're a lot more casual than we were 30 years ago. Seems like ever since the pandemic, the ties are gone, hoodies are in, the beard. I like the beard too, I just trimmed it up today. But we're a lot more casual than we used to be. But still, look the part. If you're a banking executive or if you're just starting out as an intern in a finance career, you're probably wearing a suit and a tie. If you're a teacher, you're dressed neatly. If you're a carpenter, you're probably not dressed so formally. But dress in the appropriate manner for the job that you're pursuing and that you want to advance it. So in terms of broadcasting, my philosophy, and still is you always want to be a notch up from the average. So one of our rules back then in the summer, broadcasting baseball every single day, was I'd wear slacks. I wouldn't wear shorts and sneakers. I'd wear slacks and shoes because it just set you apart as a professional. I'd have a polo shirt tucked in. We didn't wear shirts and ties. We were on radio, not TV. But we would set ourselves a little higher because I noticed when any of the bigwigs came to town representing the ball club, the major league franchise, or the owner of the minor league team, when these bigwigs came to town, they were dressed in a polo shirt tucked in, nice pair of pants, nice belt, decent shoes. So I took notice as a broadcaster and I wanted to dress the part. So back to professional Bob and unprofessional Bob. Professional Bob dressed the part. And in fact, he's in fashion these days. I probably shouldn't say that because I give him away. I still keep in touch with him. Professional Bob dressed the part. Same as I just said. He dressed professionally. He was tucked in. His hair was cut. He was well groomed. Unprofessional Bob would show up scruffy, hair all over the place, shorts, sneakers, shirt untucked. And then, as I said, the way he did things was different too. And again, we liked the guy. But, big difference. Professional Bob, unprofessional Bob. And the third way that you can be a professional as a broadcaster is to be prepared. Do your homework. Do your homework. It's a consistent thing, really for any career, but when that microphone goes on, when you see that light and you're on the air, you better have an idea of what you're talking about. Especially in baseball, when I would broadcast for 3 hours by myself sometimes. If you didn't have plenty of things prepared to talk about, what were you going to do in a 9-1 game in the 5th inning when you had to fill all that time? I mean, think about it here. I've been broadcasting this YouTube program for 8 minutes. Think about if you had to do this for 3 hours and you hadn't prepared. How boring and dull would that broadcast be? But if you prepare and you have tidbits and you have information to educate your audience, to enlighten your audience, to entertain your audience, then you're going to have an excellent broadcast because you're prepared. Professional Bob was excellent at preparing. He was meticulous. That's the kind of guy he was. He would show up. He had his facts. He was prepared. He had all kinds of things ready to go. Unprofessional Bob, I wasn't with him at home before the games or as he was doing his preparation, but I didn't get the impression that he prepared like professional Bob did. And as a rule of thumb, I used to prepare probably 3 hours at night after a game for the next day. And then I'd show up at the park 3-4 hours before the game to do additional preparation. The batting cage, in the dugout, in the booth, all the different things at the clubhouse that you had to do to get ready for a broadcast. So that's probably 7 hours to prepare for a 3-hour game. So a little more than a 2-to-1 ratio. It's different for every sport. I mean, we've talked about Kevin Burkhardt, but if you're preparing for a football game on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Friday, your preparation dynamic and cadence is going to be a little different. You're going to prepare throughout the week. Maybe you do a little bit more the day before or anytime you're with the teams, and then you're going to broadcast. So you want to be prepared. So again, if you want to be a professional broadcaster, 3 things to do. Be self-aware of the situation. Number 2, look the part. And number 3, be prepared. Today's book of the day. This is one of the books, one of the 3-pillar books that I had for all my students when I broadcast at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, Fordham University, and also Marist College. These were the 3 books. Well, this is one of the 3 that they had to get, and we used it as a textbook. Some books serve different purposes. This one was a textbook. Call of the Game by Gary Bender. Fantastic. Fantastic. It's nuts and bolts. It is the how-to of broadcasting. It is not so much philosophy, although there's some of that sprinkled in, but it's really the nuts and bolts how-to. So if you can look at some of the chapters. How broadcasting skills are used. Let's see. Let me go to the table of contents and share a few more for you. And by the way, I'm going to put the link in the description here, so if it's something that interests you, you can go to Amazon. Choosing a career in sportscasting. Why sports broadcasting? He starts with that. And then he talks about, before entering the booth, the importance of preparation. Almost like we just talked about that. Off-site preparation, on-site preparation, working in the booth, a typical broadcast, working with your analysts, radio versus TV, handling weather and other difficulties. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but this was a book that we went through in all my classes. It's a textbook, very helpful to go through piece by piece and discuss. And we cover a lot of those areas here at Sportscasters Club. So make sure to subscribe, share this with every sports fan you know, especially if they're aspiring to a career in sports broadcasting. And I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm Rick Schultz. Good to see you today, and we'll catch you next time.